Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. As always, thank you very much for spending some time with us. All right, tonight, Trump gets the last laugh against the Democrats' pathetic lawfare campaign.
It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work.
And Joe Biden is still as delusional as ever.
I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump.
That's funny for a Friday night. Plus, in moments, legendary actor and director Mel Gibson joins me live after his home was destroyed in the California wildfires. And it's another day of wreckage and ruin in Southern California as the fires continue to decimate the areas around L.A. The infernos have covered more than 35,000 acres. That's more than twice the size of Manhattan. Now, the Palisades fire has destroyed more than 20,000 acres. It's only 8% contained. North of that is the Kenneth fire. That spans over 1,000 acres. And then there's the Eaton fire. That's out in Pasadena. And that's taken out more than 5,000 structures and caused at least 2 deaths. And that's covered more than 13,000 acres.
It's a disaster. It's Armageddon. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
We're so heartbroken for our neighbors. These were newlyweds, just bought this home 6 months ago.
This is honestly probably the worst I've ever seen it. We just don't have enough personnel and whatnot to really, contain this one.
It's not a war zone. It's just a tragedy.
These poor people. And for those whose homes did not burn down, they're at risk of being looted. More than 20 people have been arrested so far for doing the unthinkable during a time of such horrific tragedy. Now, things have gotten so bad that local officials have put a curfew in place.
It's going to be in effect tonight at 6 p.m. We are not screwing around with this. We don't want anyone taking advantage of our residents that have already been victimized.
They don't put up with that nonsense in Florida. And this was the headline in Sunday's L.A. Times. L.A. and Ventura counties will see strong winds this week as major risks of fires. And now, what is it, 4 or so days later? The fires that were predicted have killed 11 and destroyed more than 10,000 homes, businesses, and schools. We've seen the video. The residents, they're dazed, they're confused. Many are furious, with former officials asking why, given the wind warnings and the dry conditions, that Newsom and Karen Bass did not pre-position sufficient firefighting resources in the most at-risk areas. Now, obviously, the fire department budget cuts did not help, and the dim-witted DEI hires are way out of their league. But even they can see how much the city's liberal leadership has failed.
The fire department needs to be properly funded.
And it's not.
It's not at this point.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say, justifiably, what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community. Let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
Well, I'm sure she's doing her best. And just when you think you understood the depths of this incompetence, we learned that yesterday the LA Emergency Management Office mistakenly started sending out hundreds of thousands of immediate evacuation notices to residents. Some of my friends were telling me about this at the time. Residents, by the way, who were not themselves in any danger. This happened twice.
I can't express enough how sorry I am for this experience. As these alerts are being issued, they are not being activated or initiated by a person.
Don't look at me. The machine did it. Now imagine the panic, being awakened in the middle of the night with the buzzing on your phone, kept buzzing going off, warning you to evacuate. So some of my friends in the Encino area were in their pajamas, throwing whatever they could, grab, throw it into their vehicles, only to get another message saying, oops, sorry. Do any of these people reassure you?
Right now, our number one priority is to establish how we can work with in coordination with our federal and state partners, how we can stop the messages that are going out right now that are not being initiated by a human action.
I can't even believe I just heard that. Our priority is to establish communication. You still can't master the messaging? Now, this led to infighting in the city government after the top emergency management officials urged citizens to check in online or to dial 211 if they indeed got these false evacuation alerts. Okay, so it was on you to kind of contact them. Well, this didn't go over so well.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and I told Kevin McGowan that. To tell people to go on a website when they may not have access to an internet is absolutely absurd. I'm not going to tell people, if you get the alert, go on and check. I'm not making any excuses. It's unacceptable.
A colossal understatement, but yeah, unacceptable. The incompetence almost across the board here is breathtaking. But of course, our incompetent president does what he always does. He claims that legitimate questions are just politically motivated.
Look, you know, I think you're getting a bad rap. I mean, this is complicated stuff. They're going to have a lot of demagogues out there trying to take advantage of it. But you're doing the right thing.
Now, the victims need immediate help, and we need a lot of answers, including to the question, why was the Pacific Palisades Reservoir offline and empty when the firestorm initially exploded? Apparently, we learned today that it was closed for repairs, leaving the area with a deficit of 117 million gallons of available water. It's such a calamity that even Gavin Newsom is now calling for an investigation into the water issue that a few days ago we were told wasn't an issue. And despite there being zero proof that man-made carbon dioxide caused these fires, Democrats toss out climate change, of course, to deflect responsibility.
Climate change is real, fundamentally altering, not just here, but around the world. Around the world, what's going on. And we've got to adjust to it. We've got to adjust to it. And we can. We have the capacity to respond to it if we, in fact, exercise our good judgment.
Good judgment? Coming from a guy who thinks he just attended Nixon's funeral. We're going to listen to him. But still, believe them when they tell you what their plans are. You heard him say, we've got to adjust to this climate change. Now, beware when the media also starts citing unnamed climate experts.
I've been speaking to a lot of people this morning, and they say basically this whole fire should be a wake-up call of how we construct our cities. Right now, we're still under the misapprehension that the climate is the same as it was in the last century. It's not. They say for this century, we need a radical rethink of how we structure our cities, how we build our homes.
I fully expect that the same buffoons who got us into this mess will try to use this catastrophe to rezone certain residential neighborhoods, and then to burden rebuilding with more red tape. The red tape should be cut here, and you should streamline the permitting process, but that's not going to be done. But perhaps this reimagining cities will work to achieve this epic dream of theirs for more high-density housing, putting single-family homes out of reach for victims and everyone, but really the super rich. All to protect us, it's for your own good, from the ravages of climate change. But instead, Californians and all Americans need to protect themselves from these incompetent woke officials. Their radicalism and their ineptitude has devastated a great state, and now it's actually destroying lives. DEI, as Elon Musk said, can actually mean DIE. These people cannot rebuild the trust they lost. Don't let them tell you how to rebuild your homes.
Oh! We had a whole house. Now we have nothing.
That was our chimney where Santa comes and now it's gone.
Everything that we built here to just be gone.
Everyone has lost everything here.
I have to start all over again. second? I can't.
We have fire up Hastings Ranch, multiple structures involved.
Having the family is the most important thing.
A nightmare that no one can wake up from. That's what they're saying in L.A. At least 11 people are dead and even more missing. A chunk of land the size of San Francisco has been destroyed. Some of the most beautiful land in the world. Parts of Pacific Palisades look like Hiroshima after the atomic bomb. Entire communities decimated. In Altadena, about a dozen homes are left in a neighborhood of 5,000 people. 3 major fires are still uncontained as crews are bracing for another weekend of the powerful Santa Ana winds. On the streets, it's turning into the wild, wild west. Looters on scooters ransacking homes. Thieves are dashing through rubble and ash with flat screens. Some of them disguised as fire officials and utility workers. The looting is so out of hand that some residents are scared to leave their burned-out homes. The governor, Newsom, says looting will not be tolerated. These communities have suffered enough. Well, unless they loot less than $950, then Gavin doesn't mind. One of the Winklevoss twins called out Newsom saying this, quote, "You and your party have been tolerating looting for years. You normalize this behavior and lawlessness. You are a disgrace. Resign now." It's a free-for-all in L.A. Every man for themselves, literally. Yesterday, local residents had to take down a vagrant with a blowtorch. They witnessed him setting fire to old Christmas trees and garbage cans. Neighbors called 911, and before the police arrived, they detained him with zip ties and a rope. A good old-fashioned citizen's arrest. Here's LAPD.
What we know right now is that the incident started here, and about 30 minutes later, a suspect was detained over in Woodland Hills area by citizens.
So someone purposely set the Kenneth fire?
At this time, that's what we believe, yes.
Do you know how or why they did that?
That I don't know.
Is this a crime scene right now?
Yes.
So everything's closed off?
It's being investigated as a crime.
Police brought him down to the station and a few hours later released him back onto the streets. They said there was no probable cause to charge him with arson, even though there was a half a dozen witnesses who saw him setting things on fire and the guy to blowtorch on him when they arrested him. That's not probable cause. So what was he doing with the blowtorch? Lighting a blunt? If this wasn't a homeless guy, I'm not sure, because homeless accounted for over half of the fires in L.A. Based on that statistic, there's a strong probability that a homeless guy burned the city down. But we're waiting for the investigation to play out. Homes have been completely toasted, and some people say it feels intentional. Here's Mel Gibson.
It's very sad. And there were many things, gone in the blaze that, I've thought about since. I thought, oh, damn, that's too bad. But, works of art, photographs, rare books, old books. Some as old as, 1600, it's like crazy.
Irreplaceable.
And irreplaceable stuff. California has a lot of problems that sort of baffle the mind as far as why they do things. And then in the events like this, you sort of look, well, is it on purpose?
All these fires should have been contained within 24 hours. It's the duty of a politician to prepare for the worst. And everyone saw this fire coming.
I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons it freaked me out. He goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind and fire's going to start in the right place and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean. And there's not a fucking thing we can do about it. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it.
So how well was California prepared? Last week, the reservoir in Pacific Palisades was completely empty. There was no water. It could have been filled with 117 million gallons of water. Instead, it was dry and closed for repairs. They closed the Pacific Palisades Reservoir during the season when the Santa Ana winds blow the hardest. And now the whole town's barbecued. And LA's water czar knew it. She basically watched them drain it. That's according to the Daily Mail. Janice Quiones gets paid $750,000 a year. Wonder how she got that job. Gavin Newsom also cut the fire budget by $100 million last year, and then vetoed a bill that would have given fire department more seasonal workers when they were short-staffed, like now. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass cut her fire department's budget, too. L.A. couldn't even get a simple evacuation alert right. Last night, the whole county panicked.
We're just mapping out here are under mandatory evacuations. And obviously you can hear all of our phones are going off some type of alert, an evacuation warning, it looks like.
Yeah, my alert reads, This is an emergency message from the LA County Fire Department. An evacuation warning has been issued in your area.
Yeah.
This is what this looks like.
Remain vigilant of any threats and be ready to evacuate. Gather loved ones, pets, and supplies. Continue to monitor local weather news and the webpage alertla.org for more information.
Yeah, so these alerts come, based on where you are.
It looks like on my phone.
Yeah, and here we are in West LA, and we're getting an alert. We'll have to look into why.
Guess what? False alarm. No need to evacuate. The city said, sorry, it was an accident. They're going to give people heart attacks. People are leaping into their EVs and speeding out of town. Oops, never mind. Nothing has gone right. The fire chief of L.A., Kristen, says the mayors failed her.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
Over the last 3 years, been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are.
But for some reason, and I think we know why, the mayor and the governor are still getting a pass for most of the legacy press. Listen to a governor who's grappled with his share of disasters.
If Newsom was a Republican, you guys would you would have him nailed to the wall for what they're doing over there. When we had the Surfside Tower collapse, I had people from the Washington Post trying to blame me for it immediately without having any facts. That mayor of LA, if that were a Republican mayor, I could only imagine what that would do. I mean, the fires are at high risk and you try to go to Africa?
But Gavin Newsom says none of this is my fault. The real battle we need to wage here is against the people blaming me.
We've got to deal with this misinformation. There were hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation, lies. People want to divide this country, and we're going to have to address that as well. And it breaks my heart as people are suffering and struggling that we're up against those hurricane forces as well. And that's just a point of personal privilege that I share that with you because it infects real people that are out there, people I meet every single day, people the mayor's been meeting with, and they're having conversations that are not the typical conversations you'd have at this time. And you wonder where this stuff comes from. And it's very damaging as well.
This is what Democrats do. They screw up and then call their critics liars. But this time, that's hard to do when your whole city is still on fire. Nobody wants to hear politicians whine about misinformation during a crisis. People have lost their homes and everything in it, their most cherished belongings, their great-grandfather's watch, their mother's wedding ring, priceless family heirlooms. Some have no insurance. The home is all they had. And they turn on TV and the governor's complaining about his approval rating and what someone wrote in the comment section. This fire has unleashed a fury in Hollywood. Actors and actresses who would never dare attack a Democrat because it could cost them their jobs are lacing into Gavin. Here's actress Sarah Foster, quote, "We pay the highest taxes in California. Our fire hydrants were empty. Our vegetation was overgrown. Brush not cleared. Our reservoirs were emptied by our governor because tribal leaders wanted to save fish. Our fire department budget was cut by our mayor. But thank God drug addicts are getting their drug kits. LA Mayor and Gavin Newsom resign. Your far-left policies have ruined our state and also our party." Even Morning Joe can't defend this. And they've defended everything, and I mean everything.
We don't know the
exact causes for the complete failure of government to be able to protect these homes, I don't think we can say it's the smelt alone. We don't know what it is, but I do think it's going to be like Hurricane Katrina. I mean, the infrastructure has been slashed. It's hard to hear people say in one of the richest cities in the world that, oh, we don't have enough water to protect people's homes.
We're witnessing the collapse of liberal society. Everything's on fire, falling apart at the same time because of stupidity, corruption, and radical priorities. Reservoirs are bone dry, but California Democrats are spending millions on DEI, migrants, and drug addicts. Now, Primetime tried to save California. Remember the last couple years? We finally threw up our hands and said, we can't save it if they don't want to be saved. After 30,000 acres have been torched and the fire's still not contained, in the capital of Sacramento, they just called an emergency session to battle Trump.
Is now the right time to have a special legislative session on allocating money to fight Trump in a way that you could already do without a special legislative session?
So I'm here to address these wildfires. This is a historic wildfire. This is a historic event. These wildfires, as I mentioned, are going to be quite possibly some of the worst wildfires and disasters in the state.
While people are trying to understand what's going on and are worried about disaster relief, worried about the ability to get homeowners insurance, your chamber gavelled into a special legislative session to prepare for Donald Trump. Again, is now the right time for that?
So certainly our focus right now is Speaker Ashley. At this moment, my colleagues and I, we are acting with great urgency to ensure that we're providing much needed relief.
Liberal society's gone mad. People have been institutionalized for less. California has been trying for years to destroy Western civilization. Well, this is what it looks like. They finally did it. Primetime's calling for a federal takeover of California. When a state becomes this dangerous and the government becomes this reckless, where the lives of millions of American citizens are being destroyed, their homes obliterated, their infrastructure annihilated, we can't wait for a recall election. This is an issue of national security. This is a public health emergency. We know they have public health emergency powers. Remember the pandemic? Invoke them. The elected officials in California can't be trusted. They're criminally negligent. Look at what we're seeing. This is a war scene. And if anyone thinks that people who are responsible for this catastrophe are going to somehow rebuild, you're out of your mind. If they're left in charge to rebuild L.A., they're going to steal the money. Nothing's going to get rebuilt. Everyone's going to get screwed. This is biblical level destruction. And the city of L.A. is hosting the Olympics in 4 years. There's no way we can showcase L.A. to the world. A full federal takeover is needed. Invoke the Stafford Act. The state's overwhelmed. Martial law might have to be declared. Primetime prays for the poor people of L.A. and hope we can put out this fire before it's too late.
We begin with good news tonight. Against all odds, after years of sketchy warrants, subpoenas, early morning raids, dozens of cooked-up charges, one after another, far-left judges and Trump-hating juries, Donald Trump has eviscerated the left's lawfare campaign. Today, New York judge, Democratic donor Juan Merchan announced that Trump would receive no jail time, no fine, no probation after a Manhattan jury convicted Trump on what is a novel, bizarre legal theory surrounding a case that had no victims. I mean, it was a legal NDA put together by a lawyer, and it was chronicled as a legal expense. Judge Merchan told Trump, "Sir, I wish you Godspeed as you assume your second term in office." It was almost laughable. But despite no penalty at all, Donald Trump will rightly appeal this bogus conviction. At his sentencing, the president-elect blasting the left, their attempts to weaponize our system of justice. Take a look.
This has been a very terrible experience. I think it's been a tremendous setback for New York and the New York court system. This was a case that Alvin Bragg did not want to bring. He thought it was, from what I read and from what I hear, inappropriately handled before he got there. A gentleman from a law firm came in and acted as a district attorney. And that gentleman, from what I heard, was a criminal or almost criminal in what he did. It was very inappropriate. It was somebody involved with my political opponent. Think about it. Legal expenses are down as legal expenses, and I get indicted for business records. Everybody should be so accurate. It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. And the people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in your courtroom. They got to see this firsthand, and then they voted, and I won and got the largest number of votes by far of any Republican candidate in history, and won, as you know, all 7 swing states, won conclusively all 7 swing states, and won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. And they've been watching your trial, so they understood it. With all that's happening in our country today, with a city that's burning to the ground, one of our largest, most important cities burning to the ground, with wars that are uncontrollably going on, with all of the problems of inflation and attacks on countries and all of the horrible things that are going on, I got indicted over calling a legal expense a legal expense. And the people of this country understand what's gone on. This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to exclaim that I was treated very, very unfairly. And I thank you very much.
All right, Trump-hating Democrats, they tried to throw the former president in prison. They wanted to send him to Rikers Island. They wanted to ruin his life. They did try to destroy his reputation, all in order to block him from winning an election. This is a massive scandal, one of the biggest in modern American history, and the media, they're perfectly fine with it. These Democrats utterly failed, and now it's time for a reckoning at the DOJ, the FBI, and the clown shows that are going on in Atlanta and New York. Now, I don't mean that Republicans should follow suit. No, they should end the weaponization of justice. They should adhere to equal justice and application of our laws, return to constitutional order. They shouldn't do to them, and they're scared to death that that would happen, that which was done to Donald Trump. The left tried to turn our courts, the FBI, our intelligence community, into a Soviet-style political enforcement arm of the Democratic Party. Thankfully, that'll end in, 12 days, whatever it is, on January 20th. If you are a Democrat and you're watching tonight, pay close attention. In this country, crimes get prosecuted, not people in this country. Justice is supposed to be blind. We're supposed to have equal justice under the law without political bias. Far-left bureaucrats that live in D.C. do not get to anoint our leaders and make our laws. And American presidents are supposed to lead and not take orders in between their naps from a group of unelected, overeducated socialists that have an agenda. This is a democratic republic. It must remain one. It's supposed to be by, of, and for the people. And our rights are enshrined by a creator, not the thing, Joe. Anyway, the left tried to criminalize Donald Trump's free expression in the whole process, block his right to participate in our elections, and in the process, they ended up putting Donald Trump and his supporters through hell. This can never happen again. The pompous far-left bureaucrats, long entrenched in that Washington swamp, when Donald Trump gets in, I hope he fires them all, flushes them all out, so that freedom, equal justice, the rule of law, constitutional order will be restored. In just, 10 days, this important work will officially begin, and not a moment too soon.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.